Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between Norsca, led by Throg, the Troll King, and Bretonnia, who's going to be led by a Prophetess. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So up here in Vanguard, I do have three groups of the Marauder Horsemen and throwing axes. They're definitely very solid against Bretonnia. With 90 speed, I do not think that any of the heavy Bretonian cav can catch them. Let's go ahead and take a look. I think Knights of the Realm and all of those different cav units do have 75 speed. So the Knights of the Realm have 75, Grail Knights also have 75, and then it looks like the Knights of the Lionhearted are the same. However, my opponent did bring the Great Royal Pegasus Knight. These guys do have 105 speed, so they can catch the throwing axes. But again, while they're pursuing the throwing axes, they're going to be taking axes to the face and taking quite a bit of damage. So it's a little bit tough, and I probably honestly wouldn't chase the throwing axes with these guys. I would probably just try and screen them out with like peasants or spearmen with shields like he has here in the front line. But still, these guys are very tough for Bretonnia, and I have seen a couple players mix in like one or two mounted yeomen to chase them, and that is definitely very cost effective. So three groups of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, just going to be focusing down the heavy cav of Bretonnia. So as soon as they commit the Knights of the Realm or the Grail Knights in the front line, I'm just going to kind of park the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes in front of them and just basically unleash a massive volley of these AP missiles. On top of that, in the front line, I do have two groups of the Marauder Spearmen, which you can see I actually put in the front line. So when the battle first starts, a lot of Bretonnian players really just have a hard-on to charge into your front line and go, against your Berserkers, which are a great target for charges. So what I often do is put the Marauder Spearmen in the front line of the initial engagement, and if they don't charge the front line, then I simply pull them back and let the Marauders and the Berserkers engage normally. Two groups of Marauders on the flanks here just to kind of absorb missile fire and harass if they do go with like mounted yeomen or any sort of missile play. In the main line, though, these guys are going to be the bread and butter. We do have the Brutes of the Hound, the Berserkers, which are the ROR. They're unbreakable. They have 55 melee attack, and they can pretty much chew through any Bretonnian infantry. I think Foot Squires put up the best fight because they have a little bit of armor, but they still get monster mashed by Berserkers, which I like quite a bit. So we have three Berserkers in total, one of them being the ROR. In order to deal with the heavy cav, we do have two groups of Famir with great weapons, which are really just absolutely incredible against the Bretonnian Knights. They have a bonus first large, which I think is like 10 or 15. Let's go ahead and look. Wow, actually 27. Okay, that is a lot better than I thought. So bonus first large of 27 on those guys. Really solid armor piercing damage, armor sundering to make your Berserkers more effective against Knights. And the Knights, some of them, I know Grail Knights do have a physical resist, and it looks like they also have some magic resist. I think that might be from a nearby buff or something. Yeah, it's from the Aura of the Lady, but typically they do have physical resist, and the Famir with great weapons actually do magic damage. So even better against those Bretonnian Knights. On top of that, we have one group of the angry Norscan Ice Wolves in the back just to pin things down, give us some frostbite, and of course Throg and Famir Veilfiend with shadows for our lords. So for my opponent's army, a very, very wide Bretonnian force. You can see it's a combination of spearmen with shields, men-at-arms with polearms to deal with Famir, and the Knights are going to have to do most of the heavy lifting. Grail Knights can do some really, really solid charges against like pretty much anything they can get their paws on. So if they're going after like Brutes of the Hound or Berserkers, they're going to take a ton of damage on the charge. He does have the new and improved Paladin, who does have a bonus first large and the Guardian ability, a Prophetess with Lore of Life, so he does have Earthblood, as well as, looks like he does have the Scroll, which I think is like a bombardment ability. Take a look, the Assault of Stone. So yeah, he's going to be dropping some rocks on me. He's got Regrowth and Earthblood. Pretty much the best kit when you're, using very heavy Knights. Knights of the Lionhearted and the Knights of the Realm on the far side. So without further ado, let's get this game underway. So in the front, you can see he was kind of like sitting back, being very cautious. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to come in here and just throw some axes. So my axemen, not going to be wasting ammo on the shield, so I just get some free shots here on the men-at-arms and the polearms, and then I kind of pull back, just waiting to see what he's going to do, how he's going to react here. But then I come back in, realizing there's not going to be another pressure, and just get, some more free shots here. So, the spearmen-at-arms or the men-at-arms and the polearms don't really have shields, so they're going to take quite a bit of damage from those throwing axes. Then I simply fall back. And now the battle is pretty much underway here. So you can see that the Grail Knights are in lance formation. They've all formed ranks. Knights of the Lionhearted, as well as the Knights of the Realm, all coming in from a multitude of angles. So he does fall back, and this is a pretty classic tactic with Bretonnia. Very good stuff for my opponent. So you pull back, and you basically pull them into the cav charges, which is pretty gangster. And you can see I'm positioning my Famir warriors here to meet these guys. My other ones are rushing over here to intercept these Knights of the Realm. But in the middle, I'm gonna have to take a bit of the charge, and it's gonna be tough. So here come the Knights charging through the mainline formation, and it looks like they're just gonna be going straight into this Berserker formation, and it's gonna do a lot of damage. Granted, it was kind of what I was expecting, and you can see all my Marauder Horsemen are waiting. Throg is nearby, and I'm gonna be casting a Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma here in just a moment. So they charge in there, do a ton of damage to my Brutes of the Hound, but what you do is you use the Melkoths to slow them down. The Berserkers are gonna start doing some work, and now you can see the throwing axes are just gonna start pouring in here and doing a ton of damage against these guys, and you can already see their HP is down to half, and that is a lot of money lost right here. And Throg is just going to frostbite them, so they're really not going to get away now. They're going to lose most of their models. On the far side here, the Knights of the Realm did come in, but the Fimir warriors with great weapons were able to fend them off. And the same thing has kind of happened over here. The, what are these guys called? The Royal Pegasus Knights did engage, and I think they were attacking my Fimir with great weapons, but the problem with Royal Pegasus Knights is they don't really have the best AP, and they are a little bit squishy, only having 30 melee defense, so I think sending them in against the Fimir is a little bit risky. Yeah, and you can see the Fimir with their huge bonus for Slarge of like 20 plus is going to get in here with some Marauder Spears, and they're undoubtedly going to drag these guys down. So that's going to be pretty much all she wrote for these Royal Pegasus Knights. So the Knights of Bretonnia continuing to cycle charge in the front line, while the Berserkers are just monster mashing, and Throg he's taking out his vengeance on this Reliquary over here. So yeah, he's going to be clubbing this thing. And I think the Reliquary is considered large, so Throg's bonus for large is going to come into effect, and he hasn't missed like a single hit. Every single one's just been a staggering, punishing blow, and down it goes with some Ice Breath right there. Throg definitely made quick work of that bad boy. The Beast Slayers Bastion are going to be fighting against the Brutes of the Hound, and the Brutes of the Hound will definitely have a huge advantage here. They're like meant for infantry versus infantry combat, and Foot Squires do have some armor, but they're not like truly heavily armored infantry, and you can see Throg also throwing up on the back of those guys. Always a good time. So essentially wherever the Knights go, I try and screen them with Marauder Spears and, you know, get some infantry and just kind of follow them around with the throwing axes and just pepper them down. And I'm telling you, throwing axes are one of the hidden gems against Bretonnia. They just do so much damage, and they're definitely a very, very solid unit here. So you can see the Fimir are going to be pushing in as well and clubbing down some of those Knights of the Realm. Over here on the far side, you can see these Men-at-Arms are fighting against some of these, well, I guess I thought my guys were Men-at-Arms, but Pendulum going down didn't do a whole lot, and honestly, I didn't really have too many good targets for Pendulums because there weren't any, like, true spaghetti lines. But here, the Paladin with its bonus first large is teaming up with the Knights of the Lionhearted to fight against my Fimir, and I had to take quite a bit of damage over here, but for the most part, the Fimir are just clubbing these Knights off their horses. Such a damn good unit. And also on that same note, this is the build from my Norsca guide that's going to be out in about 2 or 3 days. I've been editing it quite a bit, and you know, editing's a little bit tough for me because there's a lot of clicking, so it takes me like a couple days to actually make true progress on the guide. But again, most of the editing is done. I'm getting there, and it will be out in a couple of days. But this is actually the Norsca vs. Bretonnia build from that guide. And I definitely feel like it has answers for most of the tools that Bretonnia can throw your way, but I think like some Peasant Archers actually would have been really, really good against my Marauder Horsemen. So right now, just kind of chasing these Knights down. They do get a charge into my Spears here, but the Fimir are going to come in quickly. Melkot's Mystifying Miasma is going to slow them down. Then the throwing axes, whenever there's going to be Knights, there's always going to be annoying throwing axes following them, just peppering them down and just kind of dragging them off their horsebacks. And the last of the Berserkers here, of course, are probably at tier 3 of their rage, just fighting and finishing off the peasants. And Throg is on the hunt, just going after these Men-at-Arms. Looks like the Prophetess is up in the air. The Paladin is actually still alive, so there's at least some anti-large left on the battlefield. And over here, some of my Marauders got a little bit ornery and chased off some Spears too far, and they're going to, unfortunately, probably going to... I don't know, actually. I wonder if these Marauders could beat these Knights of the Realm. The Knights of the Realm do have less melee defense, and their weapon strength, of course, is a little bit higher, but their model count is so much lower. Like, I feel like the Marauders might win this in, like, a really prolonged engagement, although maybe their leadership would break. I don't know, hard to say. But that's pretty much going to be all she wrote for Bretonnia. The Marauders with throwing axes definitely did a pretty good job of dragging down those Knights, and we were able to provide some pretty good counterplay to those Bretonnian charges. But yeah, this is a build I've had a lot of success with, and it works more so against Knight builds. So if they're using like Grail Knights, Grail Guardians, you know, heavy cab in general, it's very, very effective. The Berserkers can pretty much take out any Bretonnian infantry line, unless they go like super wide. And I wonder how Battle Pilgrims would do here. I don't know, probably not too great. But anyways, the Berserkers do a pretty good job in the front line. For the Cav, you have the Fimir, you have the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, you have the Norscan Ice Wolves, you have Throg. Like, you have so many tools against the large, you know, I guess horse infantry. I was about to say like horse infantry, but that doesn't really make sense. But the Fimir Balefiend with Shadows, the Enfeebling Foe is really good. If they have like a King Lewin or an Uncle Albert that's going to be fighting against Throg, it kind of, you know, nullifies his combat stats and lets Throg really dominate that engagement. And the Melkos is a great, great tool against Bretonnian Cav, and it really makes our cycle charging harder because if you get it right when they charge in, it's going to slow them down in their retreat. They're going to get dragged down. You have the Ice Wolves, you have the Fimir clubbing them, and typically you're going to get quite a bit of value. But if I had to think about what would be really good against this build, I would probably say that like a Bretonnian build using a bunch of Peasant Archers. Because Peasant Archers would firstly be able to snipe out the Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, and they would massacre the Berserkers and give you some light overwatch against Fimir Warriors and on Throg. So I really think like a very wide infantry build, just using a bunch of Foot Squires and, you know, maybe some like Men-at-Arms and just, you know, just a huge infantry front line that can, you know, overwhelm the Berserkers with like maybe like 3, 4, 5, you know, Peasant Bowmen with fire arrows to really just kind of lay into them, or even poison. I feel like that would be really tough because then the Marauder Horsemen aren't really going to be able to find a home, and you're gonna struggle a little bit in that frontline engagement. So anyways, very well played to my opponent, Garrus Vicarian, which I believe was the great Daw plays. There's still some conspiracies about that, so make sure to go check out his channel. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this Norsca vs. Bretonnia game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.